Good evening. Hey, welcome to another episode of Politics for the People. This is episode 3, and my name is Daniel Jackson, and I'll be your host for this evening. All right. So, as I told everyone before, I am running as a candidate in 2024 for representation of Georgia's 12th congressional district. That's the Eastern District here within Georgia. This depiction that I'm about to bring up right here shows the 24 counties that are within the 12th congressional district. Um, Once again, this will be in 2024. These counties, about 750,000 people. I want to be a representative to all. So what we're talking about here within politics for the people is going to be a discussion about the real issues, drilling down into the root of the cause of the problem. So this particular episode, guns versus mental health, what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the things that have taken place over the past few weeks and few months within media, uh, whether it be some of the gun violence that has happened at some of our public schools, or whether it be gun violence happening at some of our public spaces like malls, or whether it be gun violence that's taken place within our communities, or gun violence that has taken place throughout the nation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and introduce a few people from within the local community who are going to help me as subject matter experts to discuss these issues. First and foremost, I'm going to introduce Miss Selena Keys. Miss Selena Keys is from the Family CSRA. Go ahead, actually, Miss Keys, you're from the Family Counseling Center of the CSRA. It just popped up on the bottom of the screen. Um, Please tell us what you do for the Family Center.
So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I do kind of two things at Family Counseling Center. I'm the executive director, so I manage and oversee the organization, but I also provide direct care, including therapy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't want to talk it for you. Really want people to fully understand what you bring to the table, where you work, and what you bring to the community. So yeah, Miss Keys is going to be here as a subject matter expert to assist us with some of these things that we need to fully understand about what's taking place here at the local level, and talk more towards how we need to move towards better solutions at the national level. So my next guest is going to be Mr. Marvin Cole. Mr. Marvin Cole, retired first sergeant. He's working with an organization out here called Building Unity in the Community. Mr. Marvin Cole, welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Mr. Cole, can you please tell us what you guys do over at Building Unity in the Community?
Well, building unity in the community, it really speaks for itself. And as we try to build unity in the community, try to bring various organizations together to do something great together. So everybody, it seems like a lot of organizations are doing food drives, doing clothing drives, just helping the community, doing great things in the community, don't get me wrong. But our goal is to do a lot of things together, just come as a collective organization, bring various organizations together and do some on a larger scale. Each organization that, you get out, you help 50 or 100 people, but together we can help a whole lot more.
Okay, I like that. I appreciate that. Yeah, so welcome to both of you. I appreciate both of you taking the time out to talk about this important issue. And really, I want to introduce this issue by saying the recent mass shooting that we saw taking place again here in the nation. There's been a lot of different calls for a lot of different solutions. In particular, the two that we heard President Joe Biden utilizing the highest office in the nation, calling for gun restrictions, right? Reform the guns as far as who has access to them and how we secure them, right? So we've seen a lot of those laws passed across the nation, right, restricting those gun rights. But also on the other side of the equation, we have leaders that are calling for mental health reform, right, or bolstering resources to address the mental health crisis that the nation is currently being gripped by. Now, those are not the only two solutions. And so what I really wanted to do is I wanted to bring it to this forum where I can just say, okay, well, what is it, right? Let's talk to some SMEs, some people who have been very close to the issue. Is it guns? Is it mental health? Or is it something more? What is the problem? I'm going to let you start off, Ms. Selena Keys. Go ahead, please.
So as the executive director for Family Counseling Center, I specialize in the treatment of trauma, understanding trauma, how it affects people's biology, how it affects their behaviors, how it affects their mental state, their emotional feelings. And one of the things that I believe is, I'm sorry, am I still there?
Yes, you're still there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. So I think that there's a middle ground between, restricting, taking everybody's guns and inundating everyone with mental health treatment services. I don't think that the answer is one or the other. I believe that a little bit of both is part of the solution, but I genuinely believe that the real reason that we have so much gun violence isn't necessarily because of mental health. And I'm not saying that mental health is not an important component of it, but as a trauma expert, I believe the root of mental illness and addictions and mental health problems is the experience of trauma. And so here in our community, one of the ways that we're trying to improve the community is helping people have opportunities that are more than just poverty, and especially in our community, gangs. Those are big things that are problems here in our community. So you have to use a holistic approach to be able to address the guns. It can't just be take everybody's guns away. I'm sure you've heard the argument more and more and more. You hear the argument that, gun laws do not stop criminals from getting guns, right? Just like good drug laws do not stop people from getting drugs. It's kind of that same concept, right? I think that most people on the side of gun control, at least the people that I know, do not believe that we should take everybody's guns. I don't really know anybody who thinks that that's the answer, is restricting all guns. I think what I've heard from people that are in that moderate area is it shouldn't be as easy to get a gun, or it shouldn't be easier to get a gun than it is to get a driver's license or any other thing that we're required to have a license for. And as far as mental health, absolutely, we know access to mental health care is a severe problem in this country. Georgia is actually ranked bottom in the entire country for access to mental health care. So they go together, laws, mental health services, and then what I call that community holistic support in the middle, I think is the overall solution. It's not black and white. It's not one or the other.
Okay, no, absolutely, and I appreciate that. What I really focus in on is what you're saying about how the mental health situation it's a component, right? It's a component, and we know here in Augusta what to be true, right? There's a lot of trauma. We talked about this before, that's taking place that's probably not being accounted for in what's probably driving some of the gun violence or other violence that's happening in the community. So with that, I got First Sergeant Cole. He's transitioning right now, but can you talk towards that? Probably towards like how what we asked what's the problem, right? And then talking about the root of the cause. What's most of the things that you've been seeing here locally within Augusta?
Well, let me first say that I agree with Ms. Key.
Yes.
But one thing I want to, guns don't kill people. I have several. Guns will sit there and just do it.
All right, we lost Mr. Cole. Hey, go ahead and pick it up,
Yeah.
Ms. Keys.
Oh,
He's
Go
back.
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Keys.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, Mr. Cole, we're gonna hold off on you. We're gonna let Ms. Keys answer this question. You go ahead and transition to your computer, sir.
All right, good deal.
All right.
Remind me what the question was, Daniel. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about the fact that mental health is a driving factor, right? But talking about the trauma that me and you had, offline conversation the other day about how we don't really get to the root of the problem, right? A lot of the time, because we're facing a time within the nation where you have this issue of mental health. You can say, okay, with mental health, it didn't just show up out of nowhere, right? Like, what are you seeing here on the ground, and what are some of the root causes to why we're seeing a lot of the violence and the issues, whether it be kids bringing guns to school that we're seeing across the nation, or whether it be some of the things that I referred to, right? Like, I mean, you have it where a lot of parents don't want to move to certain neighborhoods because of how bad it's gotten, right? And that's kind of what's driving politics these days, is safe neighborhoods, right? People don't feel safe in in Richmond County, right? So they moved to Columbia County. Can you talk towards that for a second?
Yes, absolutely. So we were talking about trauma and how that's a cause. And one of the things that I want to talk about is, and you and I kind of talked about this the other day too, that when you're looking at the community of Augusta or the state of Georgia versus the country, the data here, the information here, the relevant statistics here don't necessarily reflect nationally what the data says. So we know that really nationally, 2/3 of gun deaths are actually because of suicide. And that isn't the same here in Augusta. The number one cause of death for children under the age of 18 in Augusta, Richmond County, is homicide. Okay. And we know that those homicides are primarily by guns. Okay. Well, I'm sure there may be some others that I'm not sure of, like guns, or excuse me, like knives, but there are primarily that issue is guns. So again, they really go hand in hand. Poverty is really, to me, the root. Poverty and lack of opportunity. And I heard Ricky Smiley say one time that you cannot police away and you cannot legalize away poverty. You can only opportunize away poverty. And I think for here in our community, that's one of the missing links. But you can't keep pulling people up from out of the river. I'm sure you've heard this. If you don't go upstream and figure out why are they falling in, right? So we talk about, okay, get everybody a job and let them become financially independent, financially responsible. But the problem is many people that we're trying to get jobs, we get frustrated as a social worker. We get frustrated because we'll get them a job, but they can't keep the job. And so then we just give up on them and we say they don't want to work. They're lazy. They're entitled. They want everybody handing something to them. But again, no one really assesses or asks why that person doesn't want to work. And in my experience, no one wants to not work and not be productive. But we've learned how to survive in the ways that we know how. We work in a local school here that is primarily Black, primarily in poverty. Okay, 98% Black and 96% in living in poverty. And truthfully, really about 100% are living in poverty. And every single one of those kids have had an impact by the gun violence and by the homicides in Augusta. Every one of them have lost either a cousin, a brother, an uncle, their sister, their moms, their dads, all of them, their best friends. And so every day, these kids, we're hearing things like they're afraid to walk to school. They're terrified that they're going to be the next ones that are shot. They do not know how they're going to survive or live until tomorrow. These are 13, 14, 15, and 16-year-old children who only know how to survive in the environments that they've been in. And what have they been shown? How to survive through violence, right? And so until we start to build them up from the ground up, and not just those children, because I say all the time, you cannot heal in the same environment that makes you sick. So as a mental health provider, I know that there is funding, a lot more funding for children with mental health and youth issues. However, I can give someone mental health treatment all day long. I can make them feel safe. I can make them feel loved. I can give them all these opportunities, but then I send them back to the same environment that made them sick. Maybe the same parents that were abusing them, or the same community in the same neighborhood that the violence was in, or their drug dealers are next door, or the gangs are next door. When I send them back to those same communities and expect them to thrive, they can't, right? So it isn't just one answer. I can take that gun away from that 13-year-old's parent, sure. And then what? He'll find it somewhere else. He'll do something else. He'll figure out another way to survive, which isn't going to be beneficial to him, to the community, or to the nation as a whole.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? When you start talking about how the issues that we have in our community where children, even though we have these resources in place, where we're like, hey, let's get more mental health resources to help the children. If you're not helping with that root cause, where that child is going to have to go back to a reality back at home, right? The reality where it doesn't matter what you're trying to fix within the school system. It doesn't matter what you're trying to fix within, the resources that you put around, the wraparound services. You have to have a presence within that child's life for that child to actually realize that something is different. Like there's something that's tangible for them to attach to make them want to change their behavior. And I kind of witnessed that firsthand growing up, right? So I'm just trying to figure out how, as a community, right, do we solve that? And I want to bring First Sergeant Cole back in here once he's I think he's ready now. First Sergeant Cole, I want to bring you back in because hold on. I think he has a issue. Let me remove. He has to get off of his other. Okay, can you hear me now? All right, he's still going. But yeah, no, this is talking about community where we have these public institutions where we know that schools are underfunded, right? We know that we don't have enough mental health resources. I visited Warren County here recently, where we talked about with Ms. Ponsier Daniels. They have a mental health clinic that's overwhelmed out there because it's really the only mental health clinic in that county, right? So you're seeing that you have these issues. For me, and this is just my opinion, the only thing that can save you when you don't have those resources to put into those public institutions or into the healthcare, what have you, is community, right? You have to have community members that are willing to step up to serve as mentors for those kids, right? And to step up and to fill in those gaps to be frank, children who don't have everything that they need to succeed in life, right? And that's the opportunities that you were talking about before. So, Mr. Cole, are you back with us? Go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
I hope that's better.
Okay, yeah.
Running around. My apologies, man. I'm taking my daughter all around. She had a chorus performance tonight, so.
Yeah, no worries. But I want you to weigh in on this question for everyone. So me and Ms. Keys were just talking about was that there's a lot of issues in the community that have been taking place, and one of the big root causes of it goes back to where the child actually lays their head at, right? That the children are raised at home, right? They're reared at home, and they come to the public school system, and you might have to send them to mental health places to get some assistance, but there's nothing that they can do that's going to be impactful enough that's going to save them from the realities of their home. And one of the comments I just made was the fact that that's where community has to step up and kind of fill that gap where we know we don't have the resources to have an adequate amount of mental health resources for the children. And we know that the public school system is underfunded, so we can't really step up with that. So the community stepping in with building unity in the community. If you can go ahead and provide some insight, sir.
So I mentioned earlier, guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people or injure people, maim people, whatever the case may be. And sadly, I was just a victim of that. My family recently, April 17th, 2023, right here in my home. Like I said, all I do is help this community. My daughter is a straight A student. My wife helped the schools and all this type of stuff. But I don't know if it was a bad target package they had or whatever the case may be. But at 4:30 in the morning on April 17th, my house was riddled with gunfire, about 40 shots. And it absolutely terrified my wife and daughter. For me, I just so happened my wife had surgery on the 13th on her shoulder, so she had to sleep on the couch. And so for each night, I was sleeping on the couch with her. And then the NBA Finals was on. She was sitting there watching the TV show, and I said, "Baby, I'm gonna go in the other room and I'm gonna watch the game." So on the first floor, went over there and watched the game, and I fell asleep. So 4:30 in the morning, and it's, I'm a soldier as well. I'm a former soldier. Well, I'm always a soldier for life. I've been to combat 5 times, and PTSD is real. And during this particular night, when I went to sleep, I was in my dream. I was back in Afghanistan, and it was a gunfight and everything in my dream. And all of a sudden I get my wife screams. Now I know my wife wasn't in Afghanistan, so I woke up. And then so I get up all discombobulated, and I come from one room to go to where I can see her, and then she's hiding behind the couch. She said, "Get down. Somebody's shooting at the house." And so I looked out the peephole. I didn't see nobody. I seen flashes, and I opened up the side window of the house, of the door. And I opened that window, and I seen something. It was just a lot of flash. And then I said, "What are you talking about? Ain't nobody out there." And then as soon as I lifted my head up, a bullet came right through the window in the spot that I was just looking. And, to God be the glory, they have been arrested. They have been arrested in the first court hearing and sadly, the court hearing tomorrow is for a 15-year-old young man. 15 years old. What in the world are you doing coming to my house shooting? Or what are you doing out this time of morning anyway? For one. So the accountability really starts with the parents. And what are you doing with a semi-automatic weapon? It's sad. When I grew up, it was all about the village. It take a village to raise a child. I'm from Altima, Arkansas, and I'm gonna tell you, if I did we call this place Around the Bow. I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't cell phones back then. Everybody didn't have a cell phone, but I'm telling you, your mama and your daddy knew about it, or your stepdad or somebody knew about it on the way to the house. So you terrified all the way to the house. And when you got there, you was going to get that business. You was going to get it because it took a village to raise them. Now, it's sad that the kids don't even have respect for their elders.
Right. And let me chime in on that one, because I really want to use that as a segue to what I really want to drive this conversation to, right? Because I think this is something that's been festering for a while. When we were younger, I'm not sure what age group y'all fall in, but I'm gonna tell y'all, I'm right there on the dirty 40, right? I'm right here, about to cross that threshold. And I'm an 80s baby. And in the 80s, we had what our parents considered a wild culture, right, as well, to their standards. And sometimes I started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, maybe we're over exaggerating with them, right? But I think so, right? Not only do I not think so, I'm sure of it. Because once you get to a point where you're so extreme that the culture, the norms in the culture, it's like, okay, in order to prove myself that I'm bigger and badder than you, I'm gonna shoot you. That wasn't widespread as it is now, right? And of course, you have the media covering it a lot more, so it's more people are more knowledgeable on it. But where do we go as a culture? Like, this is not sustainable, in my opinion, because if you continue to let this persist, where you have a young culture, right, that is. You can blame it on one thing, but as we're saying, like, it's not just the restrictions of guns. That's not going to fix it. It's not the mental health. It's not, taking away, rap music. Everybody tries to always point to hip hop, right? If we continue to let it fester and we don't address those root causes, in 20 years, what does our country look like? And if we don't want it to look like whatever you guys are about to tell me, how do we fix it? So I'm going to go ahead, Mr. Keys, go ahead and weigh in, please.
I really don't. I oftentimes think about what our future is going to look like. I have kids. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 4-year-old, all over the spectrum. And I just think about how different my 18-year-old's life has been compared to what my 4-year-old's will be when she gets that age, And I think that we consistently get worse in pretty much all areas of our life. Every year, and there's so many different facets to it. You talked about the lack of funding in the schools. There are a million problems that we could go into about the problems with the schools. Not only the funding, but the structure, the organization, the way that the schools are ran. One thing that we really focused on this year for my 4-year-old was that children learn through movement. They have to move. It is part of what they learn. It's how they develop their sense of self. But my 4-year-old got into pre-K this year, and every single day came home from pre-K and said something like, "Mommy, all I did was sit down all day. Mommy, I hate school because all I'm doing is sitting." And so our schools begin the problem or a problem from the ground up. Funding is great. You can give them all the money in the world, but if they keep doing the same things that they're doing, we're not getting any better there. When it comes to the poverty, again, you can't just provide people the opportunities without understanding why they can't walk through the doors or complete the opportunities or fulfill the opportunities. Major said something about having, PTSD being real. Your story was really impactful, and I could see the impact that had on you. And I'm so sorry that you and your family had to go through that. But PTSD is real, and so are many other mental illnesses that are related to the trauma experience, and that's something that mental health hasn't all the way acknowledged, has not all the way accepted. When we talk about systems, the medical system is some of the medical system is one of the barriers for people getting genuine mental health treatment. There are a lot of systematic problems overall. I don't think, like I said, there's so many different parts of the puzzle that there isn't one solution. Can we fund schools? Yes, we should fund schools. We should also restructure our schools to meet the evidence of research, right? So when research tells us that, hey, when you do this, this happens, we should probably apply that research, right? Our schools don't, our country doesn't, our state most definitely does not. If we listened to what the research showed, we may be able to make changes all the way around. I'm sure you all know this, but the Dickey Amendment prevented the federal government in any way, shape, or form to doing any research on gun violence, what causes it and what benefits it. Luckily, that's been changed. And so hopefully we start to see some real, not just me talking and giving you my opinion, but some real evidence of what these causes are and what some of those solutions are.
Okay, no, hey, definitely appreciate that insight, that perspective, I would say, because something that caught my attention, what you just said, was about how right now we don't have the schools to support, and also we don't have the legislation, and that's what I'm big on. I really want to highlight this, that I come from the federal government for 20 years, right? I was in the federal government for 20 years. Just to get it, a request to get supplies sometimes is an act of Congress. So things move a lot slower when it comes to legislation at all levels, right? It's not an overnight fix. So a lot of the times we're waiting, especially in the federal government, we're waiting for funding to be approved by legislation, right? You can see how that would be a problem, right? How things get outdated. So right now we have clear and present issues in the community. And to sit there and wait for legislation to catch up with reality, you would be kind of, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because you're waiting on something to change from an elected official where they have to go in and they have to negotiate and do all this other crazy stuff, instead of actually employing things at the local level. So I think there's a lot to unpack there. But what I really want to get to with Mr. Cole, I want you to weigh in on this, because we have a note here from Miss Angela Bacos. She says, hope, that's what's missing. And I think that's the resource that's most needed, because why bother trying to be different if you don't believe your difference will change anything? Just my opinion. Miss Angela, thank you for weighing in with that. Big shout out to the Resource Conference and everything you're doing for the community. First on, please weigh in on that.
So I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Keys, but once again, man, it starts at home. It starts at home. I know a lot of us in poverty. I mean, I grew up. You look up poverty in the dictionary, you may see my face. I knew I was poor, and I was okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because we made do with what we had. But it all starts with a structure at home, being accountable for you and your children. Because in the military, we say, make a statement that we are a direct reflection of our leaders, right? Your children are a direct reflection of their parents. So you have to, for instance, let's take my incident, the incident that happened here, 4:30 in the morning on a Monday morning. These kids are out and about. Where are your parents? I guarantee tomorrow when I go to court, the parent is going to be right there with them. But where were you that night?
And this is my question though, Ty, on this one. I think that that's a known problem, right? And then Ms. Keys can actually attest to this. I think it's a known problem that we have data on where a lot of these young folks, sometimes it's the parents that are working overtime, sometimes it's the parents that aren't even there, right? Like you have a lot of kids who have that lack that guidance, whether parents are there and they lack the ability to give them the guidance, or the parents aren't there. So I think we have the answer to that one. I'm just asking the question from a building unity in the community perspective. Like, how do we get the community motivated to actually notice that we have that issue where we have young men and women who have no guidance, and then us as a community being able to build upon that to say, okay, legislation, we can utilize that. We can utilize everything in the bag, but the main thing is people, putting people towards the problem that actually care about that young man, that young woman that doesn't have direction. So back at you.
And in this area is several organizations. I am, as you can see, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And
Okay.
we have a Lamplighters organization here that mentors young men from the age of 12 to 18. The doors are open. Bring them. We will take on them and get them prepared for the future. I'm also a Shriner. We have Sam's program, Shriners as Mentors. So the resources are there. You know, I'm a Mason, and we out in the streets. We're out there, you know, showing, teaching, mentoring little young men and young women too. You know, we have some daughters as well. You know, so the resources are here. It's up to and it's been publicized and all this type of stuff, but the people has to want to use those resources.
And let me pause you on that one first, because I think this is something that Ms. Keys can really weigh in on. And this is I'm going to kick this to her for the aspect, and this is kind of the perspective I want, Ms. Keys, if you can talk to us about the hub. What are you seeing in Harrisburg as far as you have resources where you put it there, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to put resources within Harrisburg. What are some of those hindrances to the people not actually taking advantage of those resources? Because what First Sergeant is saying is true. It's true that you can go on the websites, you can go to Facebook, you can go all these different places. You can see that the hub is there. There's services available, right? There's services in Augusta. What's our drawbacks to that?
I'm really glad you asked me, because I was chomping at the bits to respond to this. I really, there's something that you and I spoke about that I know that you're wanting me to get to, and I will get to that. But one of the very basic things that I like for people to understand, again, trauma is not something that someone experiences and then they just get over.
Right.
It is something that changes the brain. It has shown biological changes in how the brain responds, how the brain reacts, what chemicals it sends. It changes it. Okay. And so one of the things that many children who experienced trauma as children and then grew up into adults, okay, there's this thing called learned helplessness. And in our society, we often look at that and we call it entitlement. We call it laziness. We call it just not wanting to do anything. But a lot of that is not because they don't want to. It is because they don't believe that they can. And I'll give you an example of why. If I am a little boy or girl, and my parents or my mom or my dad or my uncle or my aunt or whoever beat me, raped me, screamed at me, told me I was worthless, anything that you can imagine. And as a little kid, I did everything I could to make that stop. I told someone, I yelled, I cried. I did everything that I knew how to do to make it stop. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop. Everything I knew how to do didn't work. So eventually, I learned that nothing that I could do, nothing that I had power to be able to do, was ever going to help me get out of that situation. So why would I even put an effort? Why would I even give myself that chance? That is not something that consciously most people remember or understand. It is something that lives within their body. It is a root core belief that drives their behaviors and drives that. Additionally, when we talk about places like the hub, many people have been traumatized not just by their parents and their families. They have been traumatized by systems. They've been traumatized by doctors, by governors, by leaders, by teachers, by preachers and priests. They have been traumatized by people and members and leaders in our community, not just our community, throughout time and centuries. And that, again, that distrust is not something that goes away just because it didn't happen to me. There's something called generational trauma. I raise you through the lens of the experiences that I had. And so if I was raised not to trust a certain culture or a certain race or a certain profession, I'm going to pass that down to my child. And now that child does not trust in a certain race or a certain gender or a certain entity, right? And so we're talking about generations here in this community, generations of individuals who have been in poverty, who've been oppressed, who have been traumatized in a lot of different ways by the system. So when they look at places like the Hub or any other place, they're looking at the system and those resources. They also, because they don't believe in themselves, they look at individuals who look like them, who've gotten out, right? And they say, what makes you better than me? And if we don't, and I'm not saying either of you gentlemen don't have this, but many gentlemen and women who have moved out, they don't come back with humility and respect because they think, I did this, you should be able to do this. Why aren't you doing that? And so I teach that safety comes from respect and love without the judgment. Be curious, not judgmental. Why are they like that? And help the why.
Right. No, absolutely. And, you know, I can attest to a lot of the things that are going down there. And I'm glad that people have invited me out to that space to see it firsthand. Right now, we have a big muscle movement within the city, which is the Choice Neighborhood program that's taking place in Allen Homes, where it's a big task, right, from all sides, where the city of Augusta has to try to revitalize, you know, the Allen Homes area, but they you know, the way that they're doing it, they have to involve, of course, the HUD program, which is the federal level entity, and the distrust in the community. You can hear it in the discussions, right? So, with that, I'm going back to you first, Son Cole. We have these organizations, right? And this is one of my biggest complaints. Is like, for instance, you named some of the organizations that you're a part of, right? Which we all know to be true. And then, like, let's say downtown, there's one that I particularly love and enjoy, the Jesse Norman School of the Arts. And then we got Challenge Preparatory Academy. I got all these resources, right? They're not accessible to everyone, right? That's my thing. And me and my wife just had a real heartfelt discussion about, you know, some of these things that are great to the community, but my heartburn becomes, how do we make them accessible to everybody? If everybody looks at that program and says, man, you know what, it really helps, why can't we make it accessible? When I say accessible, don't put it within 2 miles walking distance, right? Don't do those things. How do we make the mentors and the resources accessible, really accessible to those kids?
And one thing I can say about our organization, the organization that I'm a part of, we are accessible to everybody, no matter your race, creed, color. It don't even matter. If you're within those age parameters, come on in. We're more than welcome. But, you know, I understand what Ms. Keys is referring to as far as the environment. Because a lot of these kids, we get them in there. We get them in there. But one thing about it, they still have to return back to their homes. I mean, it's a great, they enjoy and they love life when they are away from that environment. But then they realize they have to go back. They look forward to coming back to us. You know, and it's sad. I mean, drugs are penetrating a lot of neighborhoods and guns and everything. I'm gonna tell you, I'm also an information technology specialist. So we got to adapt to the changing world. We have to adapt to the times. We need to use resources. We getting bonuses and everything else. Forget the bonus. You know how to deter crime? Put it on camera. You know, you put enough camera because you can catch them quick. Don't have all these front cameras up everywhere. A lot of these cameras are they just up there for show, not recording the thing. You put more of that information technology out there and let it capture it. And when they capture it, ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. If you did it, it's gonna deter a lot of crime. Because they was able to capture these guys so quickly mainly because of Fort Gordon cameras. They was able to get them because those cameras are operational. You put that technology out there. I mean, think about a lot of movies that we've watched from the time somebody committed a crime, they was able to trace them on every corner that they went to until they located them. They would be able to go right there and get them. That's deter a lot of crime. If you reduce the crime, reduce the drugs and everything, I'm gonna tell you, families will start coming back together. And once upon a time, I'm gonna tell you, and especially it's more so, I gotta say, it more so affects the African American race. Because we're killing a lot of our own people. And I'm not saying that killing another race is no. Killing violence is violence. But the problem is we're doing it to ourselves. And once upon a time, in the 1950s, J. Edgar Hoover said his biggest threat, his biggest fear was for African Americans to ever unite. Think about that for a second. If we ever unite and got on one accord, I'm going to tell you, we can lift up, we can rise up, and we can reach that mountaintop as King spoke about. We can do that together, but we have to be, building unity. When I talk about building unity, when we build unity, in turn, it will bring harmony.
Can I jump in real quick first? I'm sorry. Because I want to talk towards that, but I want to talk towards the actual numbers of it, right? Because right now, Richmond County, we're sitting around 210,000 people. And for me, what I understand to be true, just moving around the city, is that we don't have enough resources, right? And I want to be able to agree that even if we put the cameras up, right, to be able to capture crime, that is another factor, right? That's another factor that we should be able to do to deter crime, and it could be something that helps in the overall scheme of things. But the drill down to it becomes, I got a lot of young folks that are all over the city where they just don't have the tutelage, the guidance to be better, right? You know how the old saying says, if you know better, you do better.
Right.
If your environment leads you to believe that the norm is not the right thing, right? Or the right thing, or doing the wrong thing is the norm, right? Like, I can be a child and I grow up and I say, oh, there's nothing wrong with slapping that female. Everybody else around me does it. If once again, that's a crime, right? Even stealing, right, is a crime. But if I normalize it in my community, what you're doing is you might be capturing a child who is a product of their environment. And so going back to that, what Ms. Keys was saying, that's why I say I really want to drill down to the root of the cause, because I think putting cameras up is just going to showcase the fact that you have a lot of kids who have lack of guidance again, right? That's all you're doing. It's like, hey, you got a bunch of people out here that don't have guidance. So I want to go back to that. And what I really want to do, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. What I really want to do is I want to utilize your first sergeant background from an organizational standpoint, because one of the things that you guys were charged with was organizing or actually being able to integrate 17 and 18-year-olds into a military, right, with the standard. And that's going back to the population with Richmond County. That's our issue, right? We have 200,000 people where you have parents at home that are very individualized, right? They're like, hey, what happens in my house is my house. I don't have to meet no standards, but I send children who are a product of my household to a school system or what have you, a community, and now you have your issue. So go ahead and weigh in on that real quick first, Sergeant, of how do you organize that from, your standpoint?
When I said about the camera, because a lot of kids, well, we all know that we look up to people, right? We look up to people. So a lot of those people that are out there committing those crimes is older and all that type of stuff. That can't look, be stricter on punishment. Quit being so lenient, because a lot of these, I'm gonna tell you, man, a lot of these folks want to go, don't care about the police. The police don't scare them at all, because they if they go to jail, they know they're gonna be released soon. It was 6 months, 9 months, or whatever, they're gonna be right back out and back in the same area doing the same stuff. Right? Be a little bit stricter on punishment.
Okay. Well, let me
all for it.
Let me give me.
Go ahead.
No. I was getting your position right there, but I wanted Ms. Keys to be able to weigh in, because I think there's two sides to the discussion that she's been waiting to get to.
How would you know that?
No, I'm looking at her face, but no, let's go ahead. I'm gonna let her go, and then I'm gonna let you get back.
Okay.
I really, again, I think that Marvin's bringing up a lot of great things that I'm excited to talk on. Again, when we talk about earlier, I said learning and understanding the research and the evidence. Okay. we have known for years and 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 years that jail and prison, it doesn't work. It's not going to work. It hasn't ever worked. It will never work. And there are, again, a lot of like biological reasons for that. If I am in survival mode, I'm going to choose what I need over a future consequence, way over what's right in front of me right now. Not because there's a lot of other factors. I think I'm smarter than them. There's a lot of other reasons for it. But ultimately, the consequences, the future consequence will never stop me from getting what I need or want right that moment. So while I do believe that cameras may deter it, I also know that once they're arrested, they're continuously traumatized. They're continuously treated like garbage and baggage. So when they come back out to the same place that told them, man, you're such a good guy. You're such a great guy. I'm so sorry you went through all that. And they get love from that place, what they feel is love, they're going to go back to that place. Prison and jail is one of the roots of many of these people's trauma. When someone is arrested, they're not just arrested and they're not the only person traumatized. Guess who else is traumatized? Their child, their wife, their mother, their father, their brother, their sisters. The police, not the police, but the legal system has traumatized thousands of individuals. And what Daniel was saying earlier, some of these kids don't have their parents. Where are they? Probably incarcerated, probably in mental health systems, probably addicted to drugs if they're not in the home, but also maybe working 2 jobs trying to take care of the basic needs for their children. I can't tell you how many addicts, especially I run into, that tell me I never had any trauma. I didn't have any problems growing up, except my mom worked 3 different jobs and I didn't have any nurturing or any emotional support or any guidance or anything. I had to figure life out all on my own in the streets next to my gang banging, drug dealing neighbors, right? So again, are police a piece of the puzzle? Absolutely. Absolutely. Good, well-trained police officers who care can absolutely benefit communities. The legal system with lots and lots of restructuring could potentially, but right now it's not helping. It's causing harm to us and to the communities.
Well, let me ask this question because we're at the 47-minute mark and I want to make sure that I get your full thoughts out. If I could say, hey, let's start it one way, right? Like if I asked you first, Sergeant, to give me like a 3 to 5 minute synopsis of how you or a breakdown of how you would approach this problem to fix it within a city of 200,000, right? Like what would you commit to first and foremost to start to move in the right direction?
Well, the real answer was adopt other countries' ways of life. I mean, the old school ways of life. You want to deter somebody from stealing, they lose a hand. You know, you want to stop somebody from molestation and all that type of stuff, you know what you lose on then. You know, and that tend to work. We got the highest crime rate in the world. And the largest incarceration rate. That's what we have. The problem is, look, but sadly, you have to rid out those bad apples. You have, therefore, the kids will possibly have a chance.
So just to be clear, the one of the answers, or the first answer, or the most important answer, will be stronger legislation against, or stronger rules.
You gotta have harsher punishments for those who knowingly commit these crimes. I mean, for these younger kids, it's some rehabilitation out there. It's rehabilitation out there. You 21 and below, whatever, you can be rehabilitated. I have no doubt about it. You can be. Okay. But some of those right there that still have that influence for those adults and all that type of stuff, it's a problem.
Yeah. Ms. Keys, sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Keys. Let me get you to weigh in real fast. How do you feel? What's same question I posed first on Cole? Like, what does it look like if we really want to get on the right track?
I said this the other day to you, for every dollar that we would spend on wraparound services in these communities and in these homes, we would save $7 on every other government spending project that we have out there. Welfare, TANF, anything to do with that, we would save $7 on. Wraparound services include individual work with the kids, as well as working with the families. And there has, again, many other countries who have been showing to do things like that have had significantly better and improved outcomes. One of the things that people do things for you or for themselves, either for one of two reasons: love or respect or fear. And we have to choose as a community, are we going to try to help our communities through love or through fear? One thing I want to say is that not only have I experienced this authentically, I don't use the word rehabilitation. I think that is a word that doesn't really fit anything. But I know that anyone can be healed and anyone can change. And because I've worked in what's called mandated treatment, I also know that to start the change process, you don't necessarily have to want it. You just have to be contained in a way that makes you do the things that you don't want to do to begin with. Because what happens is when I get a job, when I've never had a job before, because I have to have a job now, and I start getting a paycheck in the right way, hey man, feels pretty good. Feels good not to have to look behind my shoulder and worrying about the police officer. This feels good. I feel proud of myself. It makes me want to do it more. There's this idea in the society that people only change when they want to change. Well, people do only change when they want to change, but there are ways that we can help foster that desire to change. And that starts, number one, with love, and then safety and community. So I think wraparound services from trained professionals and organizations that care about quality, not quantity, is really the answer. You know, I think the community partnerships with police officers and law enforcement and mental health providers and community resource providers, those are really important. I say all of the time, of all of the agencies in this community that work in the nonprofit world, every single one of them work with people with mental health problems. And probably 3% of them have either mental health training or any mental health professionals on their staff, right? Yeah. That collaboration, that understanding of, again, there's a lot of things that we experience and believe to be true because of our experiences, but our experiences are not always the truth. The same thing that we can tell those kids in that community, just because you've had that experience of normalcy with the violence doesn't mean that that's the way it really is, you know? And right. So having training and having more than just your experiences to guide your decisions and processes and policies and procedures, it has to happen. There's a lot of good people trying to do good work without the foundation of knowing what to do and how to do it.
Right. Okay. So appreciate that input. What I want to do, just so we can get your final words, but at the same time, I want you guys to highlight some of the things that you're doing in the community. Selena, I'm gonna let you go first. Final words, whatever you want the audience to know. Please keep it within 2 minutes. And then also, we're gonna highlight the fact that you are working over the contact information, right? That you're working over here at the Family Counseling Center, the CSRA. Please, Ms. Selena Keys, go ahead. 2 minutes.
I'm just gonna make it quick. I think that the solution to guns and violence is be curious, not judgmental. Try to find out the reasons why and start addressing the reasons why. Family Counseling Center is a nonprofit here in Augusta. We provide comprehensive mental health care regardless of your ability to pay. So even if you cannot afford counseling, even if you do not have insurance, Family Counseling Center offers care for you. We are a trauma-informed and trauma-focused agency. We believe in holistic healing. And so we use exercises and interventions that are not necessarily from that medical perspective. We do things like movement. We have equine therapy. We use art therapy and music therapy, and we connect people to community resources so that they get all of their needs met, not just their mental health needs met, mind, body, and spirit, all the way around. We think holistically. So that's us. We can be reached at 706-868-5011, and my email address is on the screen if you'd like to reach out to me.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Now, Mr. Cole, I'm gonna let you weigh in, of course, on what Ms. Keys she ended on, and I want you to really get into exactly what you got going on in the community as well. Go ahead, sir.
So the holistic approach is wonderful, and I know it works. But first, we have to rid out those older bad apples. We have to get them under control. Get them away from those this young generation, so they can grow the right way. They can heal, as Ms. Keys spoke. And I'm gonna tell you, as long as they got those bad influences out there, it's gonna continue to be the way it is. And matter of fact, I fear that it's gonna get even worse. But if we rid out those bad apples, we can possibly start working together and moving forward as a United States, as a greater Augusta, you know. But I'm with Building Unity in the Community, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We have the Lamplighters organization with us from ages 12 to 18. If you have a young man out there that want to do something different, want to better themselves, we welcome them with open arms. Also, I'm with the Shriners, Stoke and Temple number 22, Shriners. We have the SAMS program. We're here for you. And guess what? There's no age limit. No age limits. You want to do something better, we're here for you. And you can reach me 706-814-9866 or marvintcole@gmail.com or marvincole@buildingunity.org.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate that, First Sergeant. Hey, with that, I want to thank both of you for attending this podcast presentation. I think that this is an awesome conversation. Like I said, it's two distinct perspectives. I think that you're coming from. I think that we, as a community, we have to come to the table and we have to have this conversation to move forward, right? And I don't think we have to wait on legislation. We have enough adults in the room or in the community where we can figure this out, where going forward as a community here within the CSRA, but as a whole in the 12th Congressional District, and then as a whole as a nation, we can figure this out. We have enough smart men and women, and we have the resources. We just need to come together to figure this out. So once again, I thank both of you for attending. What you got? Some last words?
One last quote, man. If each one help one, the world will be a better place.
Absolutely. If each one teach one, each one help one. I like that.
Help one. The world will be a better place.
Well, hey, Selena, Ms. Keys, I thank you very much for being a part of this. Also, Mr. Cole, I thank you very much for being a part of this. I truly appreciate y'all. Love y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later on.
I'll be reaching out to you, Ms. Keys.
Meet you guys. Yes. Have a great evening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. So, hey, everybody, I thank you once again for tapping in for this conversation. This has been another episode of Politics for the People, episode 3. Please check us out at DanielJacksonForCongress.com, www.DanielJacksonForCongress.com. Please support. We're looking to move this ball forward here within the 12th Congressional District, and we're looking for the support from you, the people. All right, so once again, Daniel Jackson, love all y'all. Have a great night.